This is Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. It's seen as the most evil book in history. In it, he describes his life story, his plan to start a new world war, and his conviction that Germany needs to get rid of the Jews. He was not taken seriously, but when he came to power, he put all that he wrote down into practice.
A blueprint for world conquest, a book which every good Nazi knows by heart. Its title, Mein Kampf.
In this video I will show you what's inside Mein Kampf. But to understand this book, we have to understand what's happening in Hitler's time. So I will show you the context of his ideas and what it means for the present. Because history never repeats itself, but it does rhyme. It's the 1st of April 1924. Adolf Hitler is shown to his cell in Landsberg prison. He has been convicted for trying to overthrow the government, but he's lucky. The conservative judges went easy on this nationalistic troublemaker. They didn't exile him to his home country, Austria, or worse. He isn't even behind bars on a diet of bread and water. Hitler is allowed to receive visitors. He gets so many food parcels from admirers that he gains weight. But Hitler has a problem. As a leader of the National Socialist Party, he has gotten famous for his speeches. In prison, he has no podium. He needs to show his followers the way forward. He will write a book that shows his Weltanschauung, his ideology. Where to start better than the beginning?
I consider it most fortunate today that destiny selected Braunau Inn to be my birthplace. This little town lies on the border between two German states.
Hitler is born on the 20th of April 1889 in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, in a town on the border with Germany. Already in the first paragraph, Hitler used his life story to promote his politics. Let's look at how that first sentence ends.
This little town lies on the border between two German states, the union of which seems a task to which we should dedicate our lives and pursue with every possible means.
Hitler is talking about the political idea to unite Germany and Austria, both German-speaking countries. 13 years later, when Hitler's party comes to power, he will make this dream a reality. Nazi Germany annexes Austria. What the first passage already shows is that Hitler's book is special. It's special in that he very clearly shows what he's aiming to do. From invading the Soviet Union to his idea that Jews are parasites corrupting German blood. It's all in there. So what's inside? Mein Kampf means my struggle. These are the chapter markings. The first part leans heavily on his life. It's like a coming-of-age novel. He describes growing up, living in Vienna, moving to Munich, the First World War, and his move into politics. Like a true hero's journey, it's filled with setbacks and moments of inspiration that led him to his vision for Germany and the world. He often lies or embellishes facts to fit his story. He never tells us, for instance, that just before the First World War, he fled to Munich because he didn't want to be drafted in the Austro-Hungarian army. For someone that is so obsessed with war, it's not a good look. The second book is more thematic. In it, he describes different ideas for his party, the role of his ethnic state, finding communism, and what Germany's foreign politics should be. Hitler doesn't stick to his chapters though. He will often go on tangents that last pages. So I will show you the main themes that make up Hitler's worldview. For Hitler, struggle is the driving force of history.
He who would live must fight, and he who doesn't wish to fight in this world of permanent struggle has no right to live.
He believes this worldview is based on science. On the 15th of September 1835, a survey ship arrives at an island group close to Central America. The next day, a young biologist leaves the ship. Over a month of research, the biologist makes a discovery that will change the world. He finds the same species of bird on the islands of the archipelago. But on each island, the birds have different beaks. This discovery leads the young biologist to a theory. What if animals are not made by God, but they evolve over time? The young biologist is Charles Darwin. His theory of evolution describes how species must adapt to changing circumstance, that nature is a place of struggle for survival, and only the fittest organisms survive. This theory makes headlines around the world, and it quickly gets turned and twisted. If nature is about constant struggle, why would human affairs be different? According to Hitler, humanity consisted of different races that were competing. The Aryan race was the most noble, Slavs and Jews the lowest. Keeping these races from mixing was the only path to survival. A people does not perish from lost wars, he said,
but from the loss of the power of resistance that only pure blood possesses.
To survive, Germany needed to be a Volkische Staat, an ethnic state based on the German race. But how do you keep this nation and its blood pure? You could try and promote desirable traits. The goal was for the most beautiful bodies to find each other, to bestow new beauty upon the nation. Hitler wasn't alone in this. Many people were thinking, if evolution is a thing, why can't we help nature? Why can't we select humans with these desirable traits? In the UK, the progressive Fabian Society wanted to breed humans like animals.
If a 20th part of the cost and pains were spent in measures for the improvement of the human race that is spent on the improvement of the breed of horses and cattle, what a galaxy of genius we might not create.
You might be tempted to say, what's so bad about that? Making sure that the most healthy people that make babies. Maybe we can eradicate disease. The issue is, it never stops there, because Hitler saw a nation that was infected by racial mixing, and this needed fixing.
In our present state of law and order, this brave bourgeois national world looks upon it as a crime to make procreation impossible for those who suffer with syphilis, tuberculosis, hereditary diseases, and also cripples and cretins.
And it can go even further.
If in Germany in a year 1 million children would be born, and we would take 700,000 to 800,000 away, the people might be stronger in the end.
Again, he was not alone. Churchill wanted to sterilize risk groups. And some believed humanity should not waste time caring for the defective. They would instead have great use for lethal chambers. When the Nazis came to power, they take the idea of these lethal chambers seriously. After 1933, they sterilized 400,000 people. They kill 70,000 invalid and mental patients and murder 5,000 children. Hitler spends a lot of time thinking about the First World War. He has many positive memories.
For me, as for every German, the most memorable period of my life now began. Like so many others, I had one worry during these days, that we might not reach the front in time.
For the first time in his life, Hitler felt a kind of belonging, a purpose. He got injured twice, received the Iron Cross for bravery, and it forever defined his worldview. But the war also helped him in ways he could have never imagined. There's a quote by Karl Marx, and paraphrased it goes something like this: "Men make their own history, but under circumstances that they don't choose." Hitler found himself in circumstances that have been described as a perfect storm. At the end of the war, a revolution overthrew the German emperor and established a democratic republic. When Hitler decides to go into politics, Germany is in a bad place. The First World War was war on a scale the world hadn't seen before. 1.8 million Germans died. 2.7 million were permanently disfigured. Millions of men that had gotten used to daily violence were discharged from the army. They return as soldiers that lost the war. They return as losers. In search for meaning, many men turn to extremes, to the Communist Party, and to right-wing nationalistic Freikorps. These are paramilitary organizations where these men can cosplay still being in the army. Many of them believe in conspiracy theories. They think the German army was not defeated on the battlefield. They think treacherous socialists and Jews had organized strikes and sabotaged the home front. This became known as the Dolchstoßlegende, or stab in the back myth. It doesn't matter that reality is so different, that after 4 years Germany was on its knees, that the generals knew that with America in the war they were never going to win. When Hitler starts giving speeches, he often talks to veterans like this. And like any good influencer, he knows extremism is good for engagement. So he leans into this kind of conspiracy. He denounces the socialist leaders of Germany. And this kind of talk leads to political violence. Between 1919 and 1923, a wave of political assassinations rips through the country. In 4 years, Germany sees 376 political murders, and of which 354 were committed by right-wing nationalist persons. They even assassinate government ministers. Next to the stab in the back myth, there's another theme he can always rely on to really get his audience going. In his book, he doesn't stop talking about the treaty that ended the First World War, the Treaty of Versailles.
A precondition for future success of our movement was that it should impart knowledge of the peace treaty to the broadest masses.
Germany lost a lot of territory. They had to pay huge war reparations and reduce their army to 100,000 soldiers. But the worst part of it was Article 231. This stated that Germany was the only one responsible for the war. A perfect example of victor's justice. In the book, Hitler presents himself and the Nazi Party as the only people opposing the settlement. It's not true, but it's also a careful strategy.
They have to engrave ourselves into men's minds as an enemy of the treaty. A recollection of our earlier position would earn us their confidence.
And when the government can't pay the reparations bill, France and Belgium occupy the Ruhrgebiet, the industrial heartland of Germany. Hitler knows he has rhetoric gold in his hands. He gets ready for a speech. It's the first time the New York Times will cover a performance of this new man on the scenes. The correspondent sits between an aristocratic general from the First World War and a communist.
Suddenly everyone jumps up and a roar of applause sweeps through the big hall. Upon the speaker's platform steps a simple, modest-looking, slender man of a medium height who seems underfed and overworked. In astonishment, I note that the condescending look of the old general on my left is gradually making way for an expression of rapt attention. My neighbor on the right, the communist, no longer merely claps his hands in applause. In his eyes, I think I see tears, and at every slight pause in the speaker's address, he roars approval with all his might. In fact, in spite of the speaker's moderate tone, a very hurricane of elemental passion seems to be sweeping down upon the audience.
This was at the start of 1923. The situation with the killings, the coups, the violence on the street is already bad, but it's about to get a lot worse. On the 1st of January, you would need 70,000 German mark to get $1. But this quickly changes. By December the 1st, you need 4,200 billion marks to get $1. The money presses couldn't keep up. People ran around with wheelbarrows full of cash to spend it as quickly as possible. Stores were constantly updating their prices. Bread could be twice as expensive in 1 hour. So now all your savings are gone. Your salary is practically worthless. Looting, chaos, the shame that you have to send your kids to school in clothes that are made from curtains. The historian Sebastian Hafner said that the year 1923
prepared Germany not specifically for National Socialism, but for every fantastic adventure.
At the start of 1923, Hitler's party, the NSDAP, had 80,000 members. By the end of the year, they have 55,000. This wouldn't have been possible without Hitler's grasp of mass psychology. Hitler had a big talent for propaganda. He doesn't think too much of the general mass of people.
The receptive powers of the masses are very restricted, and their understanding is feeble. Such being the case, all effective propaganda must be confined to a few bare essentials, and those must be expressed in stereotyped formulas. These slogans should be persistently repeated until the very last individual has come to grasp the idea that has been put forth.
Hitler also understands that every great story needed an opponent, a mirror image of the hero, a villain. The thing is, there were many things he didn't like. Socialists, communists, the Jews, modern consumer culture, the sexualization of society. But having too many opponents, well, that would be too difficult for the masses.
Their sense of objectivity will be aroused. They will ask how it is possible that all the others can be wrong, and that they themselves and their movement alone are right. Hence, it will always be necessary to group all opponents together as forming one solid front, so that the mass of followers will see only one common enemy against whom they have to fight.
So the enemy Hitler gives to the audience is like a recipe with all the ingredients he loves to hate. It's like pizza with ice cream, a combination of socialist, communist, and Jew that is responsible for everything that goes wrong in society. So when he says during his trial that
the future of Germany is called destruction of Marxism, either this racial poison, this mass tuberculosis will spread over our people, then Germany will die from a sick lung, or this will be removed, and then Germany can flourish again, but not before.
The message is clear. For all his hatred, Hitler does admire the organization of the socialists. He consciously copies them. He steals their mass gatherings, their use of banners, he uses their color. And from the communists, he understands he needs a good logo.
The new flag had to be equally a symbol of our own struggle. It was expected also to be highly effective as a poster. An effective insignia can in hundreds of thousands of cases give the first impetus towards interest in a movement.
Talking about topics like these can be quite difficult on this platform. There's always the risk of demonetization, and sponsors don't really want to be associated with the toothbrush mustache man. But without sponsors, this channel and this video wouldn't exist. So this is why I'm truly grateful to Odoo for sponsoring this video. What is Odoo? Well, I'm glad you asked. The best business management software on the planet. If you run a business, you must get tired of all these different disconnected apps that each come with an individual subscription. Odoo solves that. There are over 45 apps to run your business all on one platform. Everything is centralized and each app communicates seamlessly with the others. Odoo automates your processes and helps you avoid costly mistakes. No more duplicate data or manual errors. It also goes with you. Want to start with just one app? Great. It's completely free for life, including unlimited hosting and support. Ready to scale? Gain access to all apps starting at just $19.90 per month. Try Odoo now by going to odoo.com/r/thepresentpast2.
A spectre is haunting Europe, the spectre of communism.
When Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels wrote their Communist Manifesto in 1848, the rise of a communist state was just theory. But in 1917, Tsarist Russia fell to a communist revolution. This sent shockwaves through Europe. Many people in Germany feared that the revolution would soon reach their doors. Hitler hates anything that has to do with socialism, communism, Marxism. All of them believe in solidarity among the working class, a solidarity that crosses borders of countries. And for Hitler, who is an extreme nationalist, that is a problem. International solidarity will not work with his national socialist ethnic state. He even believes this international solidarity is a conspiracy to destroy Germany. A conspiracy led by the Jews.
Marxism represents the pure attempt by the Jew to eliminate the overwhelming importance of the personality in all areas of human life and replace it with the number of the mass.
But they were not only behind Marxism, they are also behind global capitalism. This might seem a bit weird, equating Jews with communism and then also capitalism. That conspiracy seems just a bit too far-fetched. But it aligns with Hitler's idea of propaganda. It's not a good idea to have all these different enemies. All enemies must be merged into one. And it helps that anti-Semitism was not unique in Germany. You've always heard about his hatred for the Jews, but where does it come from? And how much did he show in his book what he was going to do? In European history, Jews were a minority that were singled out persistently. Some stereotypes about Jews are directly the result of discrimination. In medieval Europe, trades were organized in guilds. There were guilds for brewers, for smithies. But Jews were not allowed to be part of guilds. And in many places, they were not even allowed to farm. So they were forced into trades that were not protected by guilds, or that Christians were not allowed to do. Christians were not allowed to change interest on a loan. So Jews took up the money-lending trade. In Germany, they are also overrepresented in other non-traditional jobs, like newspapers. With the rise of nationalism, Jews become singled out more and more as a group that doesn't seem to fit in. Anti-Semitism starts rising all over Europe. In the late 1800s, there is a military scandal in France. A Jewish officer is convicted for spying, a crime he didn't commit. In the survey, it's seen that half of the French population doesn't trust Jewish citizens. In 1905, Russia loses a war. And to divert anger, the Tsar turned to anti-Semitism. There were 700 pogroms in 2 weeks. So Hitler's book stands in a long tradition of anti-Semitism. In 1919 he writes the first time that Jews are not a religion, but they are a race, and they must be forced out of Germany. Now in Mein Kampf he never writes he wants to kill the Jews, but the language he does use makes his intentions clear. The Jews are parasites, symbols of degeneration of the empire, or pathogens, disease to be cured. Talking about people like this dehumanizes them. When they're not seen as human, it makes it easier to get rid of them. And the first speech he gives when he gets out of prison is clear. He is ready for
a struggle against both Marxism and the Jew as a spiritual carrier of this world plague and epidemic.
But in Mein Kampf, we can find a more chilling quote.
If, at the beginning of the war, 12 or 15,000 of these Hebraic corruptors of the people were held under poison, then the sacrifice of millions of the front would not have been in vain.
Reading this, knowing what will happen, millions of Jews gassed in Auschwitz and other places, it seems like Hitler is already here talking about his final solution for the Jews of Europe. After this, no one can doubt Hitler's intentions. But the line from Mein Kampf to the killing of Jews is not straight. It is twisted. Jewish Germans were slowly excluded from society. They had to wear identifying markers because they did not resemble the propaganda the Nazis put out. Like this picture of two perfect Aryan children that turned out to be Jewish. For a long time Hitler and the Nazis had different ideas what to do with the Jews. One of the options was to deport them to Siberia. Before that could happen, they had to conquer the biggest country in the world. On the 22nd of June 1941, Hitler invades the Soviet Union. Hitler's whole ideology led to this: a fight on epic scale, on life or death. Aryan Germans would crush the inferior Slav opponent. The army penetrates deep into Soviet soil, but the advance grinds to a halt. The obsession with the Soviet Union will end Hitler. Like so many of his actions, Hitler had described the attack in his book. He also described how that attack could fail.
If one wanted land in Europe, this could, by and large, only be achieved at Russia's expense. For such a policy, however, there was only one ally in Europe: England.
Why was Hitler so obsessed with land? Hitler thinks a great nation needs a lot of land to be able to feed its people. In history this was generally true, but the 1800s saw many technical developments in farming. Artificial fertilizer improved yields, cooling kept food fresh, steamers make shipping go faster. It doesn't matter. He wants land and he will get it. But how? Should they pursue colonies? No, too expensive to maintain, too hard to defend, and he doesn't want to compete with the English. He needs the lands of the Soviet Union. The best thing is that he will hit two birds with one stone. As we've seen, according to Hitler, the Soviet Union is ruled by a Jewish conspiracy. Destroying the Soviet Union means destroying this conspiracy. He knows Germany would lose this battle, and he keeps dreaming of an alliance with the United Kingdom. But when he invades in 1941, this hasn't happened. But the ability of Hitler to even wage a world war was almost stopped by the economic circumstance. Hitler is released on the 20th December 1924, just 8.5 months after he went to prison. He quickly compiles all the pages he has to release his book. But is he too late? Germany is not the chaotic country from the times of the coup anymore. The economy is stable. When a respected Frankfurter Zeitung reviews Hitler's book, they see the end of the Nazi movement.
Constructive politicians have conquered the ghost of chaos. They have rebuilt Germany and are about to restore safety in Europe. The times have moved on. Hitler is based on this personal testimony. Done.
The voters seem to agree. In 1928 the Nazis got just 2.63% of the popular vote. But the words of the Frankfurter Zeitung would not hold. A year later the global financial crisis hits Germany, the second in 6 years. Germany is plunged into a deep depression. The appeal of the Nazis rises again. This is also reflected in the sales of the book. It becomes a bestseller. When Hitler comes to power in 1933, the sales of his book have made him so rich he can refuse his salary. He quickly gets to work on the promises he has made. In Mein Kampf, Hitler said that when the NSDAP would come to power,
6 years would not have passed before a courageous Reich foreign policy would find an equally bold will among a people thirsting for freedom.
Within 6 years, Hitler invades Poland. It's the start of the Second World War. So what does this mean for us? In 2025, it is 100 years ago that Hitler released the first part of Mein Kampf. But we are still obsessed as ever with the Nazis. This graph shows how often Hitler is mentioned in a book. Godwin's law states that every discussion on the internet ends with the Nazis. In politics, comparing someone to Hitler is the ultimate insult. If we look at outcomes, exterminating the Jews, starting a world war, no one is as bad as Hitler. So we shouldn't be too quick to compare other people with him, but we can compare his political approach in a democratic arena. Hitler was a populist. He knew that in times of uncertainty and economic hardship, the call for a strong leader becomes louder. There are others who understand that message. In Europe, extreme right-wing nationalism is out in the open. In America, economic uncertainty has led to big promises.
Under my plan, incomes will skyrocket, inflation will vanish completely, jobs will come roaring back, and the middle class will prosper like never, ever before, and we're going to do it very rapidly.
All effective propaganda must be confined to a few bare essentials, and those must be expressed in stereotyped formulas.
But no hope or dream we have for America can succeed unless we stop the illegal immigrant invasion, the worst that's ever been seen anywhere in the world.
These slogans should be persistently repeated until the very last individual has come to grasp the idea that has been put forth.
And we know they come from prisons, we know they come from mental institutions, insane asylums, we know they're terrorists. Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing right now. It is a very sad thing for our country. It's poisoning the blood of our country.
People does not perish from lost wars, he said,
but from the loss of the power of resistance that only pure blood possesses.
It's poisoning the blood of our country.
He is trying to restrict free press. He has asked generals to get ready for a war against the enemy within.
We should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military. Ones that are run by the radical left Democrats, what they've done to San Francisco, Chicago, they're very unsafe places, and we're going to straighten them out one by one. And this is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war too. It's a war from within.
He sees the left as an enemy of stability in America.
It's the enemy from within.
Even though the extreme right is responsible for 3/4 of all political violence over the last 2 decades. It's not hard to see parallels of a people that see difficult times, rising inequality, a changing society. And just as I was ready to finish this video, I saw something that really scared me.
He's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that. But he's an instrument of divine will. We need him for at least one more term, right? And he'll get that in 28. And we have to seize the institutions, seize them and then purge them. We, as a populist nationalist movement, as a MAGA movement, we need to get the House in a situation that is permanently defendable by the MAGA movement.
You should beware politicians that offer easy solutions and lay all the problems at the feet of one group, that disregard democratic institutions, a free press and the rule of law. Because we know what can happen.